Guys, good to see you all. Thanks for being so consistent. I see a lot of people who are regular on these webinars, and that's really nice. And a whole mixed batch also. Welcome. So today I'd like to introduce Vibhor Sogani, who is a very interesting character. Apart from just the design that he espouses, the aesthetics that he shows, he's interesting because he does things in a very different manner. And why I particularly brought him in here today is because he's going to show you how through thick and thin he stuck to a particular dream, and that dream of his has taken him to the world stage. And I'm also very happy to have him here because he is my classmate and a long time friend based in Delhi. Some of you would have seen, if you've seen his work in Delhi, there's a massive sculpture at the, what circle is that, Vibhor?
It's the AIMS, between the flyovers at AIMS, All India Institute of Medical Sciences.
Yeah.
The Sprouts.
So it's called the Sprouts, and he did it many years ago when public installations were somewhat of a rarity, and probably one of the few installations that was done by a designer rather than an artist, and that was pretty controversial in itself. So Vibhor has actually broken a lot of new ground as far as design goes. So now I'm going to hand it over to Vibhor. Welcome, Vibhor. Thanks for being here. Uh, thanks for helping out here.
Thanks, Gussie, Vikram. So Vikram and I go back, I think it's been almost 30 years. And we call him Gussie, of course. Thanks, Gussie, for this introduction. And hi, guys. Good to see you all. Don't get to see people in these times, so it's nice to see people finally. And yeah, we are going through very interesting times, very challenging in some ways, but there is always a flip side to it. And who knows, my biggest thing is a few days back when there was this talk of lifting the lockdown, I was a little nervous, and so were some of my friends, because we've become so used to and fairly comfortable in this new situation. And we've all started learning things, doing things differently, or the same things in a different manner. So different things or same things differently. We've all in a way become students. We may miss these days for all we know. So there are one's got to be optimistic in these times. And yeah, so even this shall pass, of course. But then the point is to draw the positives which are there. I'm going to share the screen now and come to the presentation, because there is a continuity that you'll start seeing. Just 1 second. All right. So are you guys seeing the screen? Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'll continue the thing. So, as I was saying, these times are pretty unique, and the unique part also is that while we are living these times, the whole world is collectively living these times. So it's fairly unique in that sense, and we've got to be optimistic in these times. That is for sure. We are all reacting differently, but we are all reacting. Nobody is numb to the situation. We are all in some way participating in some way. Yesterday, someone told me it's no more social distancing. Now we are calling physical distancing, because social distancing is powerful, can be distancing. So yeah, we are all evolving by and by as we go along. Now, silver lining, which is the title of my presentation today, basically means in the next step comes a lot of positive, right? Let's hear some sound.
Vibhor, we cannot hear you.
You can't hear me at all?
Yeah, now we can.
All right. So, okay. Yeah, just 1 second. All right. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. We can. Very well.
So maybe Abhijit, you can remain unmuted, and you can, if you want, you can keep it that way. But nonetheless, so I was talking about silver lining, the theme of the title of my presentation today, which essentially means with negatives come positives. this adversity may also lead to many positive things. We've got to keep our mind open, our uh, ourselves open to those changes which are likely to happen. The world may never be the same after this. It may just transform, but maybe hopefully for the better. So it's come from the famous proverb saying every cloud has a silver lining, which you've all heard. This pandemic may also lead to some good positives. And as I was just saying, that adversity is not always bad. It may just teach us a few things. It may lead to changes which may be positive for long term. One of the very interesting phenomenon that I'm seeing these days is that while there is this worrisome health issue, parallelly we're all watching something happen. The thing that we're watching is that there is healing which is happening parallelly. The birds, the rivers, the water, the sky has never been so beautiful. So it's heartening to see. It's delightful to see some of the images which are floating around. It's wonderful to realize breathe this fresh air. And the AQI, we know the air quality index has never been so beautiful. Wildlife is kind of regaining its own spaces, lost spaces. So there's a lot of positives which are happening. There is a bit of rejuvenation, healing, which is parallelly happening. Another good fallout of this whole adversity. One thing that which I found very interesting about this time is that you've got a rare gift, the time. Very, very rarely do we really get the quality and the kind of time that we're getting in these days. And the interesting part is that while we are getting this time, the world is getting the time alongside. So we are all getting that time. This time is a rarity. It's a gift because this time can be put to great use. This is the time to maybe retrospect, introspect, do some soul searching. Who knows? Maybe look for the passion that we've never been able to pursue. Some people a lot of us may live our lifetime, but not have the time. Funny as it may sound, but this is the reality, that we may just about, we always say, oh, we didn't get the time. There is no dearth of time, but the point is this time has come with a difference. And the stretch of time is also the fact that this is a stretch of time and not a day or two, and collectively at that, is making a difference. It's a great time to think. It's a great time to revisit some of our thoughts. It's a great time to look at ourselves and maybe look for our passion. It's really I mean, look what's happening. We are all doing things which we've been always wanted to. For example, Vikram may know, but for last 30 years I've been wanting to cook. I never got down to doing that because I didn't have the time, so to say. And you'd be surprised when the 21-day thing got declared, I decided, okay, let me. And I used to watch cookery channels, MasterChef, etc. And I used to really enjoy those. So I got down to cooking, for example, and I decided for myself I'm going to cook 21 dishes. And yesterday I finished my 21 dishes. So it's a very small thing, but all of us are. I got a drone as a gift some time back, but never had the time to really sit down and assemble it and try it. And in these days, I've started flying a drone. We are all doing things in some way or the other, which we have been wanting to do. And that's the great thing about this time, that we can actually, fine tune and do things which we've missed out doing forever. And as I said, passion. So what are we doing? We are actually doing things which they may not be connected to our work. They may not be connected to our profession. They may not be necessary in the first place, but they are somewhere connected to our desire, our liking, our passion. We guys, you and me, also all of us, have a bit of an advantage over many others, that we are already doing things in life which is connected to our passion. We are connected to creative profession, but within that there is a possibility of fine tuning. Within that there's a possibility of realignment to make it work for you, because all of us have different chemistry. All of us think differently, work differently. The point is to actually align ourselves. What I call for myself course correction. Do the course correction. Yeah, do the course correction. Align yourself because it's extremely important to pursue your passion, because even within the creative profession that you've chosen, because that will make you a happy person, that will make your life meaningful, that will make a life, your life can become a dream only by this is not very complicated, and we've heard it all the time, but the point is to actually realize that this is absolutely the ultimate truth as far as my belief is concerned, that we need to pursue our passion, and that will make all the difference in the world. And the presentation that's going to follow, in normal circumstances I would have presented my journey differently, but today I'm just giving you this bit of a introduction, because somewhere down the line I saw a bit of a connect, and when I was Vikram asked me to choose a subject and connect it to the times, I realized that okay, let me just reorient my presentation and connect it so that you guys start seeing the connection in a way. So yeah, pursuing your passion is absolutely crucial. And I mean, to that extent, I would even go to the extent of saying that be a little selfish when it comes to your passion. There's no harm. You be focused, and as I said, be a little selfish about it. But and it's never an easy ride. It may be a little complicated ride in the beginning, but it starts falling in place. Uh, Way forward, as I was just saying, realign our lives within our creative frontier. Maybe we need to realign it to suit us better. We all react to the same thing differently, so we need to make things work the way it works for us. So that's absolutely crucial. Realign our lives. In Whenever we have to make a choice, I mean, there's always a choice to be made at crucial junctures. There is an easier path and there's a slightly more riskier path. Somewhere long back, I read this line, and it becomes my, whenever I'm at that juncture and I have to make choices, this springs up. And it's very simple. The biggest risk in life is not to take a risk. It's nice because it makes me sit back and relook. And in the times of adversity, probably it's a great thing to make such choices. I would say there's not much lost if you take the slightly riskier side, uh, because it may just open new avenues for you. It may open new doors for you. And when you look back, it is not much of a risk that you've taken in the first place, anyways. Because allow your heart, allow your instinct to make choices for you. Head is anyways there, always thinking, but get your heart into the scheme of things. Get that magic back. That is my preface to this whole conversation of today. And let me just proceed with yeah, a line of Steve Jobs comes to my mind, and which is, when you look back in the hindsight, you start seeing the dots getting connected. It's very difficult for all of us to see a pattern or make sense at times, but it often makes a lot of sense when we look back in the hindsight. This whole thing of the pandemic may also start making a lot of sense, and that's an optimistic way to look. Think negative and say, okay, this is it. No, this is not it. In the larger scheme of things, it will make sense. It will make sense. And as far as my journey is concerned, I have started connecting the dots for myself. So I'm going to start with my journey now. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride. It has been laced with lessons, which I often faced, and I tried to imbibe that as I moved on. So yeah, there have been times which have been full of adversity, and I've often tried to realign myself to something that connected to my passion. I'll start with my initial years of design. It started with an ID when I joined an ID, and that is, we are talking about 30 years plus, 30 years back. And when I was doing industrial design in an ID, it was a 5.5 year course. We all took a little extra 6 years. And when I stepped out, we had this confidence that, okay, we are going to we are going to change the world, because we, as designers, we are going to create products. That time there's this buzzword which was going around, globalization. And in for globalization, product design, industrial design plays a very crucial role. So we came out with this desire to change the world, and the confidence, having gone through design for that long, confidence that yes, we will actually change the world in a big way. And here we come out, and suddenly we realize that the jobs were not easy to get. So my I started off with joining a company, and I soon realized that the companies, most big companies, were in a tie-up situation. So they had the financial and technical tie-up. For example, I joined Godrej for a bit. Godrej was with one company. There was this Hero was Honda, Kawasaki, Bajaj. Likewise, most companies had tie-ups. And when we stepped out, we wanted to make products design complete products from scratch. But what was coming our way were not those meaty jobs, but slightly peripheral jobs, like design the handle of a refrigerator or graphics. This is the kind of jobs which we were getting in the industries at that point of time, because funnily, at that point of time, a lot of these, most of the big companies which had collaborations, they used to get their designs and at times even the molds from their parent company. The designs which had succeeded in the world, those molds used to come to India, and we used to start producing the same products and do fine reiteration in that to primarily make it better suited for India. That wasn't a happy situation at all. So very soon I quit my job, and I thought maybe I should have my own practice, because that way I'll get to work on a larger range of products. Maybe the gamut of would be better. So I launched my own firm at that point of time, and I started. Obviously, industrial design was something that I really wanted to do, product design, but those were not coming that easy. So started practicing all forms of design. I started doing exhibition design, retail design, interior design, graphic design. The reason was, one was these projects were coming my way. Second was, in my particular situation, I enjoyed doing various kinds of design. I didn't have any problem. I mean, though I wanted product design per se to do product design, but then I was happy doing other parts of design as well. And so the life started rolling. My design career started moving pretty soon, and effectively at that, because the gamut of and the kind of projects which were coming were very exciting in many ways. I in the process I was getting some offbeat projects as well. For example, at one point I got to redesign Mumbai suburban trains in association with MUTP, which is Mumbai Urban Transport Project. Was a Germany-based project company, DE Consult, which were the main consultants. And we came on board, we redesigned the coaches. I had a partner, Pankaj, in this, Pankaj Verma, from another classmate of mine on this project. I did large exhibition designs for the likes of Jet Airways, Ford, World Golf Council, DRDO. I, in fact, developed the first 4 go-karting tracks in the country. There were many graphic design projects for the likes of JK Industries, many of them. I got involved in the upgradation of Copycraft. Then there was a lot of interior design projects. So all kinds of projects came my way, and I was successful in that. And this journey in terms of time started. I started practicing in 92, 93, and this went on till 2000, and I had a successful run so far. But there was a problem, and the problem was that I was doing everything, but I was not practicing product design. Now that was my biggest challenge, because somewhere down the line I really wished I could, that it was nagging me, it was bothering me, because I specialized as an industrial designer. So I really that urge to realign, to actually come back on track was very strong. It was growing with time, and it reached a point where I said, okay, I don't wish to do what I'm doing anymore. I don't want to be a consultant. I only want to get into industrial design. Now that was a choice that I made, because somewhere I thought I was not, the passion factor had diminished a bit, and I wanted to realign, and I needed to fine tune what I was doing, and therefore I wanted the shift very badly. Uh, and as I said, such jobs were not coming, so the choices were very limited. One of those thoughts was to actually launch my own brand uh, of products. That way, I would get to do industrial design, I would get to do product design, but it was a tall order to launch my own line of products. Now, within various possibilities, one possibility was to launch tabletop accessories, because that was easier to launch, easier to produce, needed less money, was a specific area, within the large scheme of things. So launched, so started working in 2000. I started working on accessories, accessories, and I quit consultancy. By that time, I had a team in the office, so we all decided to work on tabletop accessories with of a certain kind. Uh, from 2000, the other positive was that in those 8 years of practice, I had made some money. So there was this money which I could invest, because to launch anything, to produce anything, you required that initial capital to make the dies, make the tools. There's one more thing which was crucial. I somehow always liked metal, all kinds of metals, but especially stainless steel. So there was that bit also, which was impacting my thought process. As I was in the process of making certain decisions. So decided to make these tabletop accessories with stainless steel as the primary base, and from 2000 to 2002 worked on many of them, created dies and molds using indigenous technology, so that the investments were low. And by 2002, I had a nice large collection. Let me just so in 2002, I launched this when I was ready, and I had enough products, and I felt I was comfortable to launch this collection. I finally launched it with a show, and there was an interesting factor at that point. There was Magpie had not. There are these two big names in this uh, in this uh, sector, in this segment of products. One is Magpie and Ardenox. Ardenox did not exist at that point of time, and Magpie used to produce products only for the international market, basis the designs that used to come to Magpie. So Magpie and Ardenox did not exist in the Indian market in a way. And by 2002, when I launched, they were not there. So let me just show you some of these products, just a glimpse of uh, those products. This collection is called Anarchy. It's got stainless steel, which is fluid, and the wood part is rigid and blockish. So therefore, Anarchy. It was kind of the opposite of what the materials. Yeah, this is another collection called Blue Moon. Once in a blue moon. That was the reason behind this collection. There are two rings. So once in a blue moon is that month of the year when there are two full moons. It's a rarity, which is why we say once in a blue moon. And therefore, there are two full moons, which means two full circles in that month. And this collection is based on two circles, of centered circles. This collection is called Ripple. It's brass here. Atmosphere. In this category, I had incense based products primarily. So when I was making this launch, preparing for this launch, there's this gentleman, Mr. Raghupat Singhania. He is the chairman of JK Industries Limited. So I spoke to him because I was doing a lot of projects for JK Tires till 2000. So I spoke to him, and he said, when you launch this collection, launch it under your name, because don't launch it in any other name, but put your signature on the product. And I was very hesitant because I was a little shy about it. So he said, if you do that, then maybe I'll launch I'll have that launch event organized for you. And that was a big lure. So I said, okay, I'm going to launch it as my signature line, and I launched it. Now the effects of that I understood later. When the launch happened, it happened at the India Habitat Center in 2002 August. And when I came back home that night, I was watching. Of course, there was media which we had contacted, and on the screens nowadays, on the television screen, is in news, you see a runner at the bottom. You keep reading some text line, and there was this line which was running. I think it was Star News, which said, "The first signature brand of lifestyle accessories launched today at the India Habitat Center by Vibhor." So that was a great boost for me, because here I had taken this plunge and put everything that I had and created a collection and launched it. And I knew the reaction was positive, but then again, watching it on the television for the first time was something that was wonderful. It was a great morale booster for me. And suddenly I realized that had I given it a regular name and it was not my name, maybe it would not have been taken in the same spirit. And therefore, Mr. Singhania's pushing me to launch it as my, under my name made so much sense to me. Also, another thing that happened was it for me as a morale booster, it won the best applied art show of the year at the India Habitat Center. It was a great start as far as I was concerned, and also the fact that I was I'd taken a chance. I'd put in a lot of money. I needed some kind of a morale booster. So these things really started working for me, and I became pretty positive. This from 2000. Okay, from 2002 to 2005, I had a good run with these products. But that's when I realized that, okay, this is not as it is. The picture is not as rosy as it appears. It's a little more complicated than that. Because look, from 2000 to 2002, when I was developing these products, making the dyes, working on design, it was a great run, and I was enjoying myself thoroughly. And these products were 150 when I launched it in the market, and I launched it with 3 stores, one in Delhi, one in Mumbai, and one in Bangalore. I launched around 60 products at that time. So I had in my collection, I still had 100 odd products left, which had to be launched. So once I launched, I didn't have any more designs to make, because I had my collection had enough designs. Suddenly there was that lull as far as my my mind space was concerned, and I didn't even, I couldn't afford to add any more collections to that or any more designs to that. So now it also became a bit of a marketing game, because selling through stores is a very different animal. Third thing, and the biggest thing that impacted my journey hereafter, was the fact that I was working in stainless steel, and as you all know, stainless steel requires a certain volumes when you make. You have to invest in a die and a tool. So when you set a die or a tool, you've got to produce a certain number to make sense. Otherwise, it does not make monetary commercial sense. You can't make 2-3 pieces. But when I was selling from these stores, I was getting orders like 3-4 pieces of this, 2-3 of this. Very soon I realized that the only way to survive is to at least have in my stocks, at least have 200 or 300 pieces ready for each. So as soon as I would get an order from a store, I should replenish that store, which meant that these 70-80 designs I had to keep at least 200-300 pieces ready in my stocks, and that was a large number. Where is the money for that? There was no money for that. So suddenly I realized that, okay, I needed money or deep pockets to actually run the show successfully. This was a serious stumbling block that came my way. And I was trying to struggle with that. And second, of course, as I said, that very soon I realized that I was just selling through stores. It was more of a marketing thing, but that design satiation that keeps all of us alive and active, that was missing. I'm sharing with you all this part because you guys also at some point would want to launch your collection, but these are the stumbling blocks that you've got to keep in mind. So I jumped into it without planning for it, without preparing for it. Uh, Around 2004, Magpie and Ardenox, around that time, they had also come into the market, but their strategy was different. These guys came into the market with, firstly, these were backed by industries. One was backed by Jindal's, Ardenox. The second was a big business house, Magpie, which launched its collection. So they had deep pockets. One, they also had the right strategy. They did not start with their own store. They went into the lifestyles and the shopper stops with their shop in shop concept and better price products, nice products. They launched their collections. Suddenly, I thought they were prepared to replenish, which was making me struggle at my level. So yeah, I started struggling, and I was wondering how to carry on with this. And there was this realization that I need to probably realign myself and my journey a bit. At that point of time, another interesting thing came my way, very very interesting thing. And and I was again ready for it in a way, because I personally also wanted to deviate. And this was 2004, and Indian cricket team was going to Pakistan for a full-fledged series, which is a one-day series and the Test match series, for the first time after 14 years. So they had gone to Pakistan for a full series in 1990, and this is 2004. In between, there was a lull, and so the whole country was really looking forward to this travel of the Indian cricket team and this tournament. And they were looking at the sponsors were looking at the standard things like the trophy, the man of the match mementos, man of the series, various mementos attached to it, the logo, etc., etc., etc. And I happened to. By that time, there was a bit of a realization. Some people connected me to metal, so that the 2002 to 2005, before, people had started recognizing me with metal, connecting me with metal. So this offer came my way, and I gave my concept, and I got chosen for this. And that was a big thing for me, because it was a very very high profile thing. So I ended up making the trophy and the man of the match. This was the trophy. It was pretty big. It was a little larger than the standard trophy. It was called the Samsung Cup. And if you see carefully, you would see, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but you would see there are these two hands. This is on the right hand side is the rear side of the trophy. So it's like a handshake, two different hands, silver and gold. And the front of the thumb, it morphed. I put a Swarovski there, and it became a dove. So the handshake is friendship, the dove is peace. And I was trying to bring in these connotations, these connections, these metaphors, and that is where it kind of worked out. And it came out very well, and it was really liked by the media. And our Prime Minister at that point of time, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, he was the one who gave away the trophy, and he was called to Pakistan, and he gave away the trophy, and he called it the Friendship Cup. And the interesting part was India won both the one-day series as well as the Test match series, and I went to Pakistan with the Indian team for that. And this got me a very interesting award, which was Asia Pacific Brand Marketing Effectiveness Award for the entire packaging of the whole thing. It was really a morale booster again, which I needed at that point of time, because I was otherwise in life struggling with the accessories. And this opened up suddenly, because I got lucky again that India won both these trophies, and I suddenly became a lucky mascot for the Indian team, BCCI. So when next year the Pakistani team came to India, and it's now called the Pepsi Cup. And here BCCI again asked me to design the trophy, because I was kind of a lucky mascot, as somebody said at that point of time. So I got to, now this time I didn't want to harp on friendship and peace and all those issues. So if you see here, it looks very symmetric, but it is not a symmetric trophy. There's a on the left hand side. Uh, if you follow this, this is the head. If the small ball on the left is considered the head, this is a man batting, posture of a man batting. If you follow the bat and the torso, and this is the head. And on the right hand side, you see a man bowling. The game of cricket is a fight between a bat and a ball, and that's how I interpreted this. And it emerges. It comes out of a Pepsi logo, and it goes into a Pepsi drop. I'll show you the next page. Eventually the ball in the middle was colored like a Pepsi thing. So this is how it looked. And very interesting. For me as a product designer, it became very interesting to look at the larger picture. You have to lift the trophy with exuberance. It has to be of a certain weight. The trophy, because it is normally for such high level events, it has security aspects connected to it. So it's got to be, the base has to be hollow. The trophy has to be, at last minute, you may have to dismantle the whole thing and put it together. So these as a product designer, I started looking at these nuances, these aspects very, very carefully, very minutely. And it was good fun because there were many other things which were being produced at that point of time, which didn't have that detailing. And somewhere the client started noticing these things. Another project came, again, India Pakistan, because these tournaments had money and they could afford to indulge and invest into developing something special. So there came this, it was called the Hutch Cup again. Then a very interesting triangular series trophy came my way. It was called the DLF Cup, and this came at a very late stage. The problem that the clients and the not BCCI but the tournament organizers faced at this point of time was that they made a trophy, but the trophy was so heavy that it was probably not getting lifted even by the two captains put together. So there were these kind of errors which happen all the time. And as a product designer, I was taking care of these aspects. And here, if you see the DLF logo, the DLF are the builders. Their logo is a pyramid. Here, if you see the trophy, you will see a pyramid opening and a building is coming out of it. So again, I was relating it to the client, the event. All that was inbuilt into the. Then came another interesting. So there were many other projects which I'm not showing, but this is another interesting trophy in between, which was called the Hutch Vodafone. This was a marathon trophy. Now, if you see carefully, you would see head of a. If you see these are heads of people, then you'd see three people in a running posture, as if they're running. And marathon is a mass game. A child would be running. An adult would be running. So I wanted to show that aspect. Also, Hutch had a logo which was three small fluid triangles. So if you see here, there are three triangles which have been shaped like people running of different age groups. So the client liked this kind of a connect because their personality was reflecting in the whole thing. Again, a successful project. In between came a very interesting, I don't think I have the slide here, but even Pakistan Cricket Board approached me to design a trophy at one point of time, and the money came from there. So that was a little bit of a kick to get money from PCB, Pakistan Cricket Board. So it was another interesting trophy was like IPL hockey. There was a hockey league called Premier Hockey League which was created. The trophy was, if you see here, there's a stance of when you start playing hockey, you start with a stance, and this is the stance. And this is the hockey stick, and this is the torso, and this is the head. So I developed my own style by then. And look at the side also. In all these trophies, wherever you looked it from, I'll go back a bit, and you'll be able to see the trophy from different angles. See this one, or this one. Even the side profiles, the back profiles, they were all very exciting because for me it was a complete package. It was not the way you looked at it from front, but there was something interesting that happened in these times, which is 2000. It lasted for 3 years approximately. Um, I was playing with the metal, with stainless steel, particularly in a way that is not very typical of stainless steel. This material requires dies and tools, and you cannot hammer it into a shape. Now the point is, how do you how and trophies are only made one or two pieces, not more than that. So you've got to, how do you do that? Also, the finish has to be so immaculate uh, that it, in the limelight, you cannot afford to have any glitches in that. So this whole thing was a great struggle, and every time you may have got a picture of the kind of plethora of different shapes that came out every time. The shapes were complex, and I could only make one or two pieces, and I could obviously never afford to have dies and tools which are which could, using which I could, or by investing into those, I could make many pieces. I had to make only one or two pieces. So there was, the mind was always active in terms of figuring out how to achieve this while not compromising on the quality. And those, the indigenization, the little jugaad here and there, was constantly the challenge that I faced. And that was the beauty of it, because everything eventually looked simple, but what went into creation of those in stainless steel was a very, very complex journey. Now, 2004 to 2007, as I was saying, by 2007, this journey of mine became a struggle all over again, because typically what happens is, when you start something, and this was a new language in the line of trophies that I'd kind of started doing, and people started noticing. By 2004 2005, I had a kind of a, easy run, because there was nobody else offering such solutions, and I had a fairly decent portfolio by then. But by 2006 and especially 7, there were my other players also who came into picture. There was Swarovski, there was Fraser and Hoss, there was some other international players also who came into picture. So suddenly, what I was controlling, or where I had a say, and where I didn't have to pitch, maybe show a sketch and then get a project. No, I in those times I was not uh, showing any I was not pitching to get a project. I was getting signed up, and then the projects used to, then I used to start the creative journey. But by 2006-7, the demands had changed from the market, because these guys now wanted to see the concept, and they had options from Swarovski, from other brands. So they wanted to choose, which means I was one of the many. That was something that I was liking, because one, again, I was already spoiled a bit. Second, again, that I thought I'd had a fairly good run. So why the heck should I go and then participate in a pitch? And that thing started bothering me, and I wanted to, again, as I said, I was looking for an opportunity to sort of.
Please put the necessary changes and submit your document.
Yes, ma'am. And we'll remove that part that which we have not read properly.
Okay, there is some other Abroji, there's some other sound.
Yeah, you can continue.
All right. Okay. So, as I said, the struggle. I was, again, one. I had also had a good run, so I was happy, satiated with the whole journey so far. Wanted a change again, and was looking for one. The accessories part had already ended by then, and I had a few lessons from that time. Of course, at that point of time, I got a very interesting offer from a brand to do lights. There was a show which was happening. The brand was Vis-a-Vis. There was a show which was happening in Mumbai, and there were all these international good big wigs like Urco, Louis Paulson, Floss, Artemide, many Roblon. The big dads of lighting industry were showing in India in an exhibition, and we didn't have any Indian lights or any Indian brand of that kind, which could also go into the show alongside. And I was asked by this brand Vis-a-Vis to create a light which probably sat well with these international top brands, and I'd never done any lights before that, so that was a very interesting challenge for me, and also a deviation. So I took the plunge. I took that challenge, and I created a light for that show. This was my first first light. It was called Chroma, and this was made in, yeah, it was in 2008, I think I made that, and it became a part of the show. And this is how the light. Let me show you some more versions of this. Yeah. So this was very, very, very successful in the show, and the finishes and the design quality, all of that actually seemed so good that many people thought in the show that it was one of the lights from the international brands. So I was not prepared for it, but I started getting orders right from the exhibition. Now here there was an interesting. Okay, I also added very soon. Okay, I'll come to that later. I added a couple of more lights very soon within a space of couple of months to this, because when I started getting orders, but there was a twist here. See, again, if you see, there's a product. I also did accessories earlier. In accessories, there was one more challenge that I faced. It became a retail game, and I had no connect and the context with the project where it would go. No connect with the end client. So it was pretty much a sales driven, marketing driven thing. Here, as I told you just now, I started getting orders from the exhibition. So I got I got a little time to develop the products. 3 months, 4 months. I could dictate that because these were from the project. So I could say, okay, I need this much time to produce your units. And that helped me in two ways. One was that I didn't have to invest beforehand. I could take the advance and then invest into the product, and I had the time of 3 months approximately to create the line. So this, and then again I was interacting with the client and formatting the collection basis the space. So there were many positives. These positives were lessons that I learned from my earlier experience. That one, I didn't have to have my investments in place beforehand. Number two, I got that lead time to create these products. Number three, I was not detached and I was still engaged with the project, and that made me very excited because I suddenly, these few projects that came my way, made me very happy because I was back in the process in the right manner, and that made me create 2-3 more lights immediately to enlarge my portfolio, and that is when things started rolling for me. So again, suddenly the trophies had completely stopped. Within 3-4 months, I was out of that, and I was busy making more and more lights. Yeah, this is another light called Aura Royal, more dramatic, more royal. Had 3 layers. I'll show you in the next slide. One, a little jali, then there's a silver beaten layer, and third is a gold layer, and this light which is filtering out from the bottom as well as from the side. It had a nice royal feel to it, and this was another light. Some of these lights instantly got me awards because I was fairly new in the market. Indian lighting industry had not seen Indian collections at that point of time. I'll take you through more lights. So the collection started. This is based on beehive. There is a little bee. If you see in the corner, in the middle, there's a bee, and there is there are 2 screens, and the light is in the middle of nest. Fairly large. This is almost 2.5 feet wide light. Yeah, you can get the sense of scale here. So the light portfolio started growing. This is called Rain, and it was not, again, there was no plan as such, but I was just going with the flow. I was aligning myself all the time with the needs of the market and with what I felt like doing at that point of time. And again, the learnings of the past were paying off at this stage. Now, if you notice, there is something unique about all my lights, and I need to tell you that these are not wall lights, these are not floor lights, these are not bedside lights, these are not ceiling lights, these are suspension lights. And what I was doing was I was creating modules. If you just look back, all these lights are modules which I'm formatting in different spaces. So I could make a small unit for a bedroom corner, or I could make a large cluster for a lobby. So where was I investing? I was investing in the modules and the units. But what was I getting? I was getting results which could fit into any kind of spaces. Now again, another good move from the lessons again that I'd learned, that if I were to make just wall lights, then it'll just be one piece, or a pedestal light, it'll be just one piece, and then the investment would be that much more higher because I'm making 5 different kinds. But here I refrain from making any of those lights, just one module, or one variation within a module. And it opened, as I said, from a residential project to a corporate project to an atrium. All kinds of projects came my way because it was a modular solution, systems approach. Another product light called Slice. So the same light, I've used it in suspending in atriums, over a dining table. I've used it in multiple ways. A very interesting brief came my way. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this building. It's called The Falling Waters by the great Frank Lloyd Wright. And one client specifically told me that I need a light inspired from The Falling Waters. And such challenges came my way once in a while. And this was my take on that. So basically it has very strong vertical and horizontal lines, and a waterfall runs through the building, as you can see on the left hand side visual. It's a very, very iconic and a famous, and all architects, everybody knows about this thing. This was the product that came out of this, The Falling Waters. And now you probably can see the connect of the basic language. What I look for and what we all look for is that, the inspiration to start. This was the project image. And then there are variation. The interesting part was that when I made this light and I launched in the market, there were architects who told me that if I had taken the inspiration from The Falling Waters. So that was fabulous for me. There was a circular version. Somebody asked for a circular version, so I made a circular version. So essentially, the market again was responding. The architects, this time again, I was dealing with architects who were coming and, helping me add my own collection. This is the light which is called Twilight. It's a mix of glass and brass here. So I added a bit of glass by then. Not much, but yes. Light called Curve. A series of lights which was based on our craft sector, using the craft skills. This was the series. And another light called Orion. This is made of crystals. And again, I could scale it up, scale it down, whatever. This is another light which ended up becoming a 60 feet installation in one project. So using these modules, I was doing 2.5, 3 feet a small cluster for a bedroom corner, or I went as much as 99 feet in one project using chroma. This was a light I added very recently. In fact, this was very, very good for me because last year it got me the best international light of the year in the decorative wall category. And it was in Dubai that I was called to get the award. So it was a big high for me. The collection continuously grew. This time around, I had smartened by what I had learned from the past. So suddenly in the lighting industry, people had started recognizing me. I was playing with so I was actually, if I were to tell you the truth, I was always reacting to the market. How did I create new collections? Because the market and the architects told me that, okay, can you do this? And then if I would see merit, then I would work on that and I would add that to my collection. This was a show in Germany, show that was in Germany. And presented a very premium series of lights out there with gold leafing. Another large installation, Flux. In one project, it's become 40 feet, 45 feet in Pune. And somewhere the boundaries started to blur between light and art. Somewhere, right where I started was uh, uh, modules which hung as a cluster in less numbers or in large numbers. But somewhere I started becoming more experimental, gave it a more artistic twist, made it more installation-like. And of course, I could do that because I was the multiple things which were happening. One is the client's expectations were changing, and second was I was also getting the confidence that I could do it. So these things go hand in hand. These are all stainless steel. For example, this is probably 5 feet length and has around 4,000 stainless steel balls. This is inspired from the Weaver's Nest. Another variation. So once I would sort of get the hang of something, or then it's easy to play around with it. And then again, there was something which started parallelly. So while I was doing the lights, I started dreaming of light installations and artworks or installations. So there was a twist, and I started. This deviation actually started midway when I was in the process of enlarging my collection of lights. There was an offer to do a show, a pure art and installation show, and I must share something with you. It was not easy for me to deviate from design to art, because as designers we tend to follow form follows function. We're very conscious of the function, and suddenly art is a totally different gamut. So for designers to get into this zone of art is tricky, and it doesn't come easy. I declined the offer a couple of times because I said, no, as a designer I cannot create art. But then later at some point of time I said, why not, let's give it a shot again. One part of life was going steady. There was boredom to an extent which came alongside, and again I thought, why not enlarge or have some more fun in life, play with the material little more. The confidence of dealing with the material had reached a point where I could indulge, so to say. And all that led me to say yes to the show, and I took that offer on. And believe me, that whole exercise of creating artworks was absolutely brilliant for me. And suddenly I was looking at the material differently all over again, because this time it had to do a different thing altogether. It was all about soul. So suddenly there were no price factors, there were no constraints of those sorts. I could create something that was independent of any of these so-called boundaries or limitations. I could do it the way I wanted to do it. So it was very, very exciting. And if I hadn't taken the plunge, probably I would have missed out on having a lot of fun that I'm having in this space today. This is stainless steel made so fluid that it feels like water. And what you see here is a strap in brass, the chappal strap, and this is cast in brass. So it is called Stroll. It's somebody walking over water. That was the theme, Stroll. So this is stainless steel and this is brass here. It's called Rhythm. It went into a Zen center, and by the way, it's in Gujarat. So in a place called Uplands, a colony by Arvind, very close to Ahmedabad, actually in Ahmedabad. Yeah. Again, an artwork for the same project, Uplands in Ahmedabad, where it's a Zen meditation center, and they wanted me to create something for the altar. And Enzo is the symbol of Zen. It's like a brush. You may have seen it. If you type Enzo, you will see a brush stroke, which is full with paint and then slowly reduces. So that is exactly what I tried to do with stainless steel balls here. And sparkles beautifully with limited light. I was often mixing lights with installations. Some of these projects are commission projects, and some of these projects or artworks I created, on my own, because I felt like doing it. So that liberty was no more a challenge. It was becoming a reality in my scheme of things. This is an interesting installation. It's got pipes and pipes and pipes and pipes. So they just go into each other, and in the negative space that you get, I insert a light in that. So each segment gets lit up by that little segment below. This is in copper. I was working, and I am working in all metals now. Stainless steel remains the predominant material, but yes, all kinds of materials are there in the portfolio. It's crazy how stainless steel reflects. Absolutely stunning. I mean, it surprises me all the time. There's a very interesting project that came my way in 2015. In 2014, I was approached by the government, PMO, to create works around Mahatma Gandhi. And the reason was 2015 was Mahatma Gandhi's 100 years of coming back to India from South Africa. So, a centenary, and that to commemorate that event. And these guys had seen, some people had seen some of my works, but for me, it was a big challenge, because I had worked in an abstract format all my life, and I'd never worked with something realistic. And Mahatma Gandhi, that was, everybody knew. So it was a bit of a challenge, and it took me a long time to actually decipher this and to figure out. And in the process, I almost ended up saying no to them, because I was struggling so much. But then somewhere down the line, I refrained, and I managed to do it somehow. And and in the process evolved a new line of a new language, and that has become very, very nice for me. I'll show you this. You can see. So it's a mix of mirror finish stainless steel and iron. Iron is 8 millimeter ahead, and there is a very fine detailing to lift it up and to have very, very high shine. This was a show the show started off with Mahatma Mandir in 2015, where Pravasi Bharti happened, and this was in the center space. The show, I had 12 works. I'm going to show you some of these. Look at the same work. This was in Mumbai, and this was in Ahmedabad. And in Mumbai, it was put in a park, the series, and therefore look at the reflection. It's absolutely stunning how the stainless steel reacted to. This is a show that I had in Australia. So there are 12 works in the series, And in 2015, it was in Pravasi Bharatiya, and in that show. And then in 2016, because a lot of people from international fraternity, our ambassadors, high commissioners, and people from abroad came for Pravasi Bharati and Mahatma Mandir, and the show had a theme which was actually to see your own reflection in Mahatma. So it was called Mahatma in Me, because it was actually inspired from his saying, "Be the change that you wish to see." And therefore, when I was working on this, uh, and I saw my own reflection, and that was the intent, to see yourself within Mahatma Gandhi, be the change, because he's come and gone. What he said, what he meant was, you've got to bring out that change in the world, and that is what I was beginning to see in the series. So as artists, you've got to have a theme which you run through a series of artworks, and this was the theme in the whole. This show thereafter went to Africa, Australia. It's traveling, and there are 12 works in as I said, 12 works in this thing. So life deviated, and life was taking off, going on a tangent in its own natural way. I was not planning things. I was just reacting. I was only accepting. I mean, I kept the windows and the doors open and I was taking on the challenges. And there were so many. There were times when there were many adversities which I have not pointed out. But I'm telling you, if I look back at my own journey, there are more failures than successes. There have been lots and lots of stumbling blocks, and I've often thought of taking it easy and not risking it all in terms of money, in terms of. But I've somehow jumped, and which is what I was trying to tell you earlier on, that the adversities can become great opportunities in its own way. It is just that you've got to give it that time, that gestation time period to settle down. There was this project which came my way called Sprouts, which is okay. I'll just take you through this. So this is in the Delhi, in Delhi, between the Ames flyover. Let me take you forward first, and then I'll come back. This was the location. This is on the right hand side is Ames, on the left hand side is India, Delhi Heart Safdarjung Hospital. So this is the surroundings, and there is this flyover loop which got created and ended up giving two large chunks of land, 3 acres each. And the project was beautification of Delhi. That was what was told to me by the Chief Minister at that point of time, Mr. Sheila Dikshit, that let's do something which is about India, but not in the standard way that we do things, or we see public installations in the country. Let's do something which is new age, which is which is like international. When we go abroad, we see these exciting artworks all around. Let's do something different. So I thought of this thing, Sprouts, and the theme was when the seeds begin to sprout. I wanted to send a message that India. This is 2009, I think. And India was kind of rising. So I wanted to send this message, communicate this message through the artwork when the seeds begin to sprout. And all these artworks, we had, again, issues like money was in short supply. So on one side, there are about 100 small ones. On the other side, there's the other loop, there is a tall 40 feet high feature. That's how it is. The landscaping, unfortunately, never got done, but the plantation and the lighting never got done. But yes, the installations came up with a lot of struggle. It happened. Just to give you an idea of the scale. And here in the background, you can probably see the small sprouts on the other side. This is the scene at night, early morning, and you can see Ames, All India Institute. Quite an iconic location, 6 acres of land, a dream project for somebody like me. It was absolutely brilliant. And as Vikram was saying right at the beginning, for me to move from design to art was a struggle, because a lot of people objected to me having this kind of a space in such a prominent place. But the reason why I got this project also was because by this time people had started, again, as I said, recognizing me with stainless steel. I had a fairly long run with this material. So Jindals were sponsoring the project, and therefore it was an easy connect, and they asked me to develop this installation. So it was the Delhi government, Jindals as the sponsors, and me as the artist. That was the. And then again, I got a very interesting award, Indian Art Icon of the Year award in Singapore for this. This was my first public art project. Whenever I sort of deviated and I did something different and I took up the challenge, there was this beginner's luck factor which came about. So now when I launched my accessories, there was an award and some kind of a morale boost. When I got into lighting, as with the first light, some awards came by. Likewise, this was first public installation, so to say, and it kind of keeps you going. There's a project again in Gujarat. This was my initial concept. The scale is small in this, but actually the installation is big, a little bigger. This is the one. So it's got light inside. It's called Kalpavriksha. And this is one of my most recent projects in Dubai called Joy. Dubai, this project had the brief from them was Emaar, which is one of the biggest builders in the world. They were the sponsors, and their brief was celebration, joy, happiness. Sorry, they wanted to celebrate the construction which was happening around. A very big tower which is coming in the neighborhood, which is going to be 1.5 times bigger than Burj Khalifa. So they wanted to have this positive installation, and that was the brief that came to my mind. Came to me, and it was in the middle of the road, this installation, and I called it Joy. It's a bouquet of balloons, and when you see a bouquet of balloons, for all of us, be it kids or adults, it brings a smile. So you can see the Burj Khalifa in the background. So my thought was, why not do something which is as simple as that? And I'm telling you, the reflections were incredible. So if I were to go back, I was on the crane for a few days, 3-4 days when the installation was going up, and the mirror finished stainless steel balls. Some of these balls, by the way, are 1 meter large, very, very large. And it's just incredible reflections in the whole thing. I was having, so at this point, at this time, I'm almost 30 feet high up and taking a picture. And by the way, when I was taking this picture, the other side of the sky was, this was the other side. So the desert sky was brilliant. This is the final image with Burj Khalifa in the background, and adjacent to this is where the installation is going to be the tallest tower, which is underway. So this has been you may have noticed there have been a lot of shifts, a lot of challenges which came my way. I took them up. There were always risks of failures, and there were times when I failed nice and proper. But then again, as if I go back to my initial line, the biggest risk in life is not to take a risk. I don't want to grow old, 70, 80 years old, and then I am sitting in my bed and thinking, oh, I wish I had done that. So I just took these challenges, and a lot of these challenges came at the time of, opportunities came at the time of adversities, when the chips were down, when I was looking for a shift, when I was, a little depressed, so to say, because the right kind of work was not coming my way. And then came a bit of an opening, and I grabbed it because it aligned to I wanted to make my own story. And that's the thing for all of you as well. Chart your own story. These times are wonderful for you all to, sit back, look back, and see what you want to do. It's not too tough. And be selfish. As Steve Jobs said, be hungry, stay foolish. And I would add one more word to that: be selfish when it comes to your passion. Do not compromise on that, and you will start seeing the results. Today, when I look back, I see the dots getting connected very nicely, because let me tell you, when I started with stainless steel, with the accessories, I was struggling because I needed to be very, very practical. When I got to do the trophies, the challenge was huge to create a, 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 a completely well finished product without investment of a data tool. But that gave me that little, opportunity to tweak or technology and do something different, and that came very, very handy when I got into lighting, and even more so when I started making art. So all the lessons, I also realized what I didn't want to do. For example, I didn't want to market the way I was marketing or selling accessories. I did not connect with the market. I wanted to remain connected with the market and the client and the people involved, and therefore the light scenario, which still continues, gives me that opportunity to remain connected, to do things my way. So this is it. This is, and again, the opportunities in the adversity is the point. I'm going to around 5 years back, I created my studio because I also wanted to. Now I could I really wanted. There was the collection of lights and products was so big that I needed a space to. So let me just run you through the images of the studio. This is the Sprouts model which I showed to Mr. Sheila Dikshit for approval, and this is where it kind of got selected, and eventually it became a project. There are indoors and outdoor displays in the studio. That's it. Thank you. Thank you for being patient. How many people have survived this presentation?
Quite a few, actually. Vibhor, I wanted to introduce you to Colonel Bose, Colonel Shurojit Bose.
Hi.
Um,
I can see. Hi.
yeah, so he's our director in UID.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi Vibhor, I'm sorry for our lives now are all on Zoom, Google Class, Hangout, what have you. Yeah, it's a totally different world, and I'm sure you, as all others, are also grappling with a similar situation. But first of all, let me
also enjoying parallelly.
let me extend a heartfelt thanks on behalf of all at UID, as we say, from the president to the provost to all the HODs, Vikram, Lolita, many people you would be knowing, and also our faculty who are actually working double time. No one knew about this situation. Everyone is adapting, innovating in their own way. And therefore, it's so nice to have you here to interact with these students of ours who need all our help and support to cover up whatever they can in this period. It's also given this time has given us a lot of thought for reflecting on our lives, on spending time on things which we haven't done.
Correct.
But what we started is this sort of a eminent series of town halls and webinars where we get eminent personality who have created a perch or a landmark for themselves and as a source of inspiration for students who are just on starting their journey, so to speak. Yeah, and I'm sure as good times and bad times and good times are coexistent, I'm sure the good times are going to come very soon, and I hope you can come to campus, see some of the stuff our students are doing, amazing stuff, amazing way they are going through the design process. They are provoking and also at times instigating more conversations than they were before. And the same is happening in this virtual world of ours. The fact is we are connected. The fact is we have a bright future for the country and for our students to do well. And I hope having you is such a blessing, and I'm sure the students are inspired how your life journey is a source of inspiration.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to coming to.
Yeah.
Very soon.
Thank you so much, and I'm sure, of course, I should have been there to have invited you, but we are all grappling with our own situations. Thank you, Abhijit. Thank you, Sambit. Thank you for all the other students. And be charged up, be motivated. As they say, the tunnel may be dark, but there's a huge light coming through on the other side. Thank you
Completely.
very much. Thank you. Thank you, Vibhor.
Thank you. Thank you, Colonel Bose. Any questions, anybody? Anybody wanted to ask something, anything? Well, then in that case, yeah. Vikram, so you need to mute yourself, unmute yourself.
Through this journey of Vibor's, I want to, I mean, while it's not exactly a question, part of it is a question and part of it is an observation that I want to make, is that all designers, regardless of what their background is, whether they come from visual communication, from whichever stream it is, a designer is a designer at heart, and a designer is capable of creating anything that she or he wishes to create. You could be a visual communicator, you could be a product designer, you could be a textile person, anything. But when the chance comes to create, just like Vibor has taken, grasped the opportunities, I wish all of you do, and you will do the same thing, because at UID, or for that matter, a lot of design colleges, what is taught is design as a way of life. You grasp that principle, you will design anything. There's nothing that you cannot design. The world is your oyster, as one can say. And I just wanted to ask, Vibor has not exactly touched on the amount of struggle that he's put into his work, because there was a time when he mentioned that he amassed some money and he put that money into creating some things without even thinking whether what work he has done is actually going to fetch him any revenue. He spent lakhs of rupees. He is modestly not saying how many lakhs he spent, but I do know it's a considerable amount of lakhs. It was his life saving that he put into his passion. From that, it emerged into a bigger opportunity. Now, Vibor can confidently put up anything across the world, and he's going to make his money. But it started with this particular dream of his ability, like he said, to take these exceptional risks. And all of you are capable of taking the same exceptional risks. Everybody has that in them, and a designer is a lucky person to be studying design. I still feel after all these years, I'm absolutely lucky to have got into design. Vibor would say the same thing. I'm sure anybody from my generation, across generation, will say the same thing. When we are students, we have a smaller world, but when you come out, when you see the whole thing opening out, you're able to understand what your capabilities are. Vibor, you have anything to say on that?
One, of course, is capability, Gussie. That's correct. Another is, again, as I said, the heart, the instinct. Actually, we all underestimate our instincts. You know, the instinct factor is not given enough importance. But live with your instincts, because instinct is not random or abrupt. Instinct comes with a lot of backing of your experiences. That is when you develop instinct. I mean, a very interesting example is when you start learning how to drive. You're so damn conscious. You want to know where the gear is. You're constantly at it, and very soon, few months and a couple of years later, it's all instinctive. You are doing other things, and yet you're driving. Instinct. Your instinct has got it. My point here is allow your instincts to dictate and to voice their opinions, so to say, because heart factor is absolutely, that is where magic comes. You know, the mix of head and heart is where the magic happens. Yeah.
Okay. Vibor, I think Aman had a question for you. Aman.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Hi, Aman.
My name is Aman. So first of all, I want to say, like, your ideas are so inspirational and so amazing, and I liked your work so much. So my question to you is that, sir, your ideas seem so basic and so simple, but deep down they have a huge message, impact, and the idea is so complex. So how do you get the idea and you fine tune it to so basic and so abstract?
Yeah, so one, you said something very correct, because it's a part of my philosophy. Simple is beautiful, less is more.
Yeah.
That's absolutely, and by the way, when you do get simple, things right, it becomes timeless.
Hmm.
Let me tell you, my first light, which I showed you, the Chroma light, is still my best selling product after 10 years. I mean, I may develop multiple things, but that, because it was so damn simple. It was brought to the basics. And today, when I take on a project, actually I keep talking. It's become a part of my thinking process, but I still simplify. I still keep simplifying, and I still keep telling me that if it is very, very simple, it will work for a longer duration for most people. So yeah, that's become a part of my way of approaching a situation, and that would, you guys should also, because as designers we tend to complicate things. Reverse the approach, simplify things, and because then it communicates, and it communicates. If it communicates one thing, at least that thing should be absolutely crisp and clean. uh, and the other part of yours is, how what inspires at times. I'm changing your question a bit. When I No, inspiration again comes from anywhere. I mean, it is actually sometimes a word which can lead to an inspiration. Sometimes it could be uh, anything around us. So I don't really look for an inspiration per se, but yes, I do. Let me tell you another interesting thing. For me, it is easier to work on commission projects than to work on something which is completely without any boundaries at all. Because where do you put your pencil and how do you start that thing? In a commission projects become that much more easier. For example, when I was talking about Joy Dubai, the brief was very abstract, but very, I mean, it was not a brief in a way. They just said, we want to celebrate. But that was a huge thing for me. Huge thing for me. And that's where Mrs. Sheila Dixit's one simple thing was, I forgot to tell you, from her brief to me was from walled city to world city. From walled city to world city. Simple. That was what she said it. But for me, it became a great brief, because suddenly I realized, okay, I knew what I had to achieve. And then when the seeds begin to sprout, is a very simple message. And by the way, all those shapes are the same shape. There is only one shape, be it a small cluster or the full cluster, if you break it down, because we needed to save money. We didn't have enough resources. So it is just one shape which has been modified all the time in terms of scale, and repeated or reused or modified or scaled up. So yeah, so inspiration comes from anywhere. We've got to keep our antennas up, I guess. As time would pass by, you would not, it'll become a part of your system, your way of thinking. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I think before, Jatin from semester 2 had a question for you.
Okay.
Jatin?
Sir, it's Jatin. So, like Olafur Relations created the monofrequency light. What do you think about that? Like monofrequency light, which would
Jatin,
create
you're not extremely audible. Jatin, you're not extremely audible. Can you speak a little loudly?
Jatin's question is on the chat box, Abrojit. You may want to read it out.
Yeah, so I think what Jatin wanted to ask is, Vibhor, what do you think about, I don't know whether I'm actually pronouncing it correctly or not, Olafur Eliasson.
Yeah, I'm aware of his works.
Yeah, he
yeah, sir.
light installation which would create everything into black and white. So what do you feel?
So I like his work. He's one of those guys who's suddenly taken the world screen big time. He's become extremely popular. His works are all over. I love his work. He also, he uses some things that I align to anyways. He uses spheres, for example, glass spheres, and he plays with simple forms. And I'm absolutely, I love his work, and I kind of connect with his kind of work. And he again plays with light and art and installation. There's a lot of parity, Jatin, when it comes to his work, and the way he thinks out of the box is absolutely interesting. He plays with light very beautifully. He plays with reflections very beautifully. While I play with steel as a reflective material, he uses glass to reflect or to refract. He also uses refraction. alongside. So he uses that material very simple form very effectively. You guys should check out his work. It's inspiring. And he again, so it's not just black and white. He also does a lot of brings in a lot of.
Sir, what do you think about that monofrequency light which he created? Which turns the room into black and white. Monofrequency light.
Oh, okay. I have not seen that. I have not seen that work. I've seen his work where you see, so there are these clusters of balls in a pattern, glass balls, which have light inside and which has got, some areas which are colored inside the ball. When you move from one side to the other, you see black and white, and you see those artworks become colorful. But what you are saying, I may not have, I've not seen all of his works.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I hope no other questions. So I think then, Shraddha, do you want to thank Vibhor on behalf of the students?
Yes, sir, sure. Thank you for this opportunity. Good afternoon to all, and Mr. Sugani. I would like to thank you in behalf of all my colleagues for taking time out from your schedule to enlighten us on how minor details can create a bigger meaning, and greatly motivating us towards taking ups and downs of the journey with the same compassion. We love the line of lights and the installations, sir. Hence, I extend a big thank you from all of our sides to inspiring us, and wish you all the luck with your passion and your cooking, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks, Vibhor. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Nice interacting with you all. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.